Good morning everybody. This is Aksa Fatima, Assistant Professor from ISC Engineering College. So today we are here for the class on renewable energy technologies. So the fourth unit we are dealing with is energy from oceans. So what is the energy from oceans? How can we harvest the energy from oceans? So before moving on towards what are the different types of energies harvested from the oceans and what are the different energies obtained, let's see the content of our presentation. So the content deals with the introduction, where we will see the introduction for how the energy is harvested from oceans, and your next topic would be ocean thermal energy conversion, how the thermal energy is utilized from the oceans, which have three types, that is closed cycle or the Anderson cycle, open cycle or the closed cycle, hybrid cycle, OTEC power plant. Then further, after the thermal energy conversion, we will move on to the tidal power generation and also the advantages and disadvantages of it. So firstly, let us see the introduction of this ocean thermal energy conversion. So ocean energy usually consists of 70% of the ocean actually covers 70% of the Earth's surface. So these are the major solar collectors. It collects the solar energy. So we can harvest this we can harvest the energy from the oceans in two different types. That is the thermal energy, which is obtained from the thermal difference from the warm surface water and cool deeper waters, as well as the potential energy and the kinetic energy, which is usually accompanied with the mechanical energy, which is from the tides, waves and the currents of the oceans. Then next we have so first we will be dealing with the ocean thermal energy conversion. Ocean thermal energy conversion usually consists of the thermal energy of the ocean and the temperature difference between the surface water and the water which is at the bottom of the ocean, where you have cool water. So the temperature difference between them is used for the generation of electrical energy in different forms. So your ocean thermal energy conversion is basically used by the temperature difference of both the surface water and the deep water. So the temperature difference between these should be minimum of 20 degrees Celsius, that is 36 degrees Fahrenheit, to operate an OTEC plant. So these are usually used in the zones where the equatorial waters between 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south, where you will have a good temperature at the equator. So the OTEC offers the advantages of the resources which are available almost equally during the day and the night time. So it won't vary between the day and the night time, but there might be a slight variation between winter and summer. So these renewable energies sources, the OTEC renewable energy sources, can be combined with other applications like they can be used for water production, air conditioning, refrigerants, etc. So let us see what are the different OTEC plants what we are having. So if you see here, there are three types of OTEC systems, that is the closed or the Anderson types, Anderson OTEC cycle power plant, the open or the closed OTEC cycle power plant, and the third one is hybrid cycle OTEC power plant. So first, moving on towards the closed loop OTEC power plant. Closed loop OTEC power plant uses two working fluids to complete its cycle. So here if you see the OTEC power plant, what it does is it takes the surface warm water. It takes surface warm water and also it has the working fluid as ammonia. So based on these two working fluids, that is the warm surface water which vaporizes the second working fluid, ammonia. So here the warm seawater is taken from the surface of the sea or the ocean and it is evaporated and made into a vapor, and this vapor will be used to vaporize the second working fluid, that is either ammonia, propane or Ferron type refrigerant. Okay, this second working fluid will be used, will flow through the evaporator, that is the heat exchanger, to the turbo generator. So this evaporator or the turbo generator produces high pressure steam, steam which moves the turbine, which is connected to the generator. So this turbine is connected to the generator and it produces the electrical energy or the electricity. So after this working fluid or the vapors which are the second working fluid, ammonia or propane, will be again condensed using the cold seawater. So the warm seawater, that is the above layer, was used to vaporize the ammonia, whereas the second layer is used to condense the ammonia. Okay, the cold seawater is used and pumped from the depth of the sea, that is, it is pumped from the depth and all is used in the condenser, wherein the water which we get back is the again returned to the ocean, and the working fluid is again used as the that is the second working fluid. The ammonia or the propane is used again for the second process. So the closed loop OTEC, in closed loop OTEC, what is happening, that the working fluid what you are using is again used for the next cycle of generation. So the closed cycle, I use smaller amount of the smaller amount of working fluid rather than the open loop closed cycle, cycle or the clogged cycle, because of the operating pressure of the fluids which we are using, the ammonia or the ammonia and propane and high Ferron type refrigerants, that is the density of these working fluids is high. Now moving on towards the next type, that is the open type OTEC system or the open type system, where you have you go here for the open type. So it was first constructed by Georges Claude. That is the reason it is called Claude's cycle also. So this plant was constructed in 1929 in Cuba. So here what happens is, the seawater itself plays the multiple roles as the heat source, working fluid, coolant, etc. Okay. So now if we see in the figure, the temperature, so that here if you see, the surface water temperature is 25 degrees Celsius and your desalinated water temperature will be 23 degrees Celsius, and the different parts of this Claude cycle power plant are shown in the figure. The second one is the vacuum chamber, the third is the turbine, wherein your electrical energy is converted, the turbine which runs, and the fourth one is the generator, fifth one is the line to grid, that is the generator is producing the electricity and it is utilized by the grid, and sixth one is your desalinated water after being utilized in the condenser or the vacuum chamber where it is evaporated. So you get the salt separately and the water get desalinated, and the seventh one is your condenser, where again it is cooled down from the vapor to the liquid, and eighth one is the deep water. So here the eighth one is the deep sea water, where you will have so it is pumped from the deep waters of sea, where the temperature will be 5 degrees Celsius, and the waste water which is cool, its temperature would be 7 degrees Celsius, and the 10th will show the vacuum pump here, which is pumping the water. Okay, so now if we see the working of this, in open cycle, warm water can be used as a working fluid. So here the warm water is used as working fluid, which is brought from the surface of the sea, when the surface water is evaporated and it is flash evaporated, wherein the temperature is wherein the water is converted to steam. It is pumped to the vacuum chamber. Okay, in vacuum chamber it is evaporated, flash evaporated in the vacuum chamber, and produces a spray of liquid which will go to the turbine. So this pressure of this boiling water will go to the turbine, and the steam produced is used to run the turbine and generate electricity. The electricity is passed to the utility grid or wherever it is getting utilized. Okay. Now the steam which is getting produced, or the condensed steam, it goes to the condenser here. So in this condenser, it is here in this condenser, the condensation process takes place, where the cold water from the sea is taken and utilized. So the cold water from the sea is taken and utilized, and the evaporated water will be condensed, and again it will become the water, that is the waste water, with a temperature of 7 degrees Celsius. And now this condensation process will have two methods. Either it will have spray cold seawater over the steam, or in the surface condenser, in which the steam and the cold water do not enter in contact with each other, producing desalinated water. So if the condensation is done using the spray method, the mixed of the steam and the cold water will be discharged back into the ocean. Okay, so if the condensation is taking when the spray method is used, when both the water and the steam is mixed, it will go back to the ocean, whereas when you use the other method where it is just desalinized, the fresh water can be utilized for the purpose of other freshwater utilization purposes. So the next you will have the hybrid OTEC cycle, wherein hybrid itself signifies that it is the modification of both open and closed cycle. So here what is happening is, in hybrid cycle you are utilizing both the features of closed and open cycle systems. Okay, so what is happening in open cycle? We are using only one working fluid, that is water from the surface of the sea, whereas in closed cycle what you are doing, you are using two working fluids, that is you are also using ammonia, furan or propane as the second working fluid, and also the surface water. So the hybrid OTEC system is utilizing both the warm sea water and also the working fluid. Okay, so both of these are used to produce a new system, wherein you are utilizing this system for the production of energy, okay, electrical energy. So what is, if we see the diagram of this hybrid OTEC power plant, what is happening is, the water is being pumped from the surface, that is the warm water is always the surface water of the ocean, which is at 26 degrees Celsius. So this may vary between the temperature ranges. So the difference between the cold water and the warm water temperature should be at least 20 degrees Celsius for any OTEC power plant to be working. So the temperature range of this warm water is 26 degrees Celsius, which is being pumped from the surface and is utilized for the to the ammonia evaporator. So now if we just see the different parts of it, we will have a warm water pump which is pumping the water from the upper surface of the ocean or the sea, and then we will have an ammonia evaporator wherein your second working fluid will be evaporated and is utilized. The next part will be your turbine, which will be used for your generation of electricity. Then you have a generator which will be connected to a turbine. Then again that second working fluid will be condensed in a condenser, which is an ammonia condenser. Then this is being condensed using the cold water pump, and this ammonia which is being condensed is again going and getting utilized with the ammonia evaporator, if you see here. Okay, so now if we see a working of this hybrid OTEC power plant. So what is happening in this hybrid OTEC power plant is you are using both the open cycle and the closed cycle system. So the warm seawater here, the warm seawater is pumped and entered into the vacuum. So this line signifies the vacuum, wherein vacuum chamber where it is flash evaporated. What is happening in the flash evaporated? The warm seawater is converting into the steam, similar to the open cycle where it was happening. This warm seawater is going to the flash evaporator and becoming into steam. Converting into steam was in open cycle system. So similar to the open cycle system, here in the flash evaporator it is getting converted to steam. The steam now is going to the ammonia evaporator, where it is getting vaporized the second working fluid, that is ammonia, as in the case of closed cycle loop. So what is happening in this chamber, ammonia evaporated chamber, the second working fluid or the ammonia is getting vaporized. So this vaporized fluid is in the form of vapor, which is at a pressure of 890 kilo per atmosphere. So now this goes to the turbine, wherein it drives the turbine, which produces the electric energy through the generator. So the electric energy is produced using the vapors of ammonia. Now this electricity is generated, which can be utilized in different methods. So the steam which is condensed now, these condensed steam, which it will be at a temperature of, see, when it is entering the turbine, it is at a temperature of 21.1 degrees Celsius. Now when it is leaving the turbine after the generation of electricity, it is at 11.9 degrees Celsius. Now this turbine or the steam which is leaving the turbine is at a temperature of 11.9 degrees. So it has to be condensed back to the liquid form, liquid state. So what is happening in condenser is the steam is getting condensed into two parts. Again, what are the ammonia steam is getting condensed now. So here in the ammonia condenser, what is happening is your the steam which we are getting back from the turbine is going to the ammonia condenser, where we are using the cold water which is pumped from the deep sea and is used to condense the ammonia. So for this cold water will be at a temperature of 4.5 degrees Celsius, and it condenses the ammonia, and the ammonia which is again we got after the condensation will go back to the feed pump, that is, it will go back to the ammonia evaporator, which can be utilized again for the next process. So this ammonia purification system is from the ammonia storage, is a form of ammonia storage system. So with the ammonia condenser, if you see, there is another block connected where you have ammonia storage system. Okay, this is going back to the ammonia evaporator, and the process repeats itself. So this is your hybrid OTEC cycle. Next, if we move on towards the what are the applications of OTEC systems. So these applications of OTEC systems are aquaculture. So what does aquaculture means? Your underground, that means under sea level or the water level, how the organisms or the how the organisms under the water are behaving. So what happens in aquaculture is so the financial and the energy cost of the pumping of large large volume of water from the deep ocean is reduced, and the water containing high concentration of essential nutrients are not getting depleted because of the plants. Okay, and the mineral extraction also taking place, where you can extract almost 57 traces of elements in the soil dissolved in the solution. And Japanese are further investigating in the extraction of uranium from the sea levels due to this OTEC plants. So moving on towards the advantages of OTEC systems are that if you see here, the warm surface seawater and the cold surface water from the oceans are in the depth of the fossil fuels are replaced because of the fossil fuels are replaced by the ocean water, and the production of electricity is taking place, and this will produce no carbon dioxide or other polluting chemicals which will be released into the water, which is also reducing the pollution in the environment. Okay, when you are connecting these OTEC plants in the nearby seas or the oceans, you may also get a lot of seafoods or the nutritious seafoods at the outlet. So you are in one way you are also collecting the seafood, and also the working fluids what you are using in ammonia is also used for producing hydrogen, aluminium and chlorine at the end of the process after the condensation. So the disadvantages, moving on towards the disadvantages, what are the disadvantages of OTEC system are, these OTEC systems though they are pollution free, but they are taking more cost than those of the fossil fuels. If we use fossil fuels, they might get exhausted, but the current cost of the installation and running the OTEC power plant is high when compared to the fossil fuels. And though these projects are very small scale projects, that's the reason there are no companies which are investing in these small scale OTEC projects. And the construction of this OTEC power plants is causing the damage of the reefs and the marine ecosystem because of the pipes or the installation of the pipes which they are placing for pumping the warm water and the cold water. So these are the disadvantages of OTEC plant. Now so what you are looking for, the next consideration is here, site consideration, where to place an OTEC power plant. We will see that. Okay, so now when considering a site for the OTEC power plant, what you will keep in mind is the distance of the thermal resource, that is the resource what you are getting, the thermal difference or the grid interconnection, that is how far is the shore from the thermal resource. So how far is the shore from the thermal resource, that is why are you checking for the source from the thermal grid, so that you can find a proper grid or utilization point, a grid utility for the utilization of the energy, electrical energy what you are producing. Okay, the next we are seeing is the cold water location or the depth of the sea. Okay, if the sea water where you are getting the temperature difference of 20 degrees from the warm water and the underwater cold undersea cold water, the temperature difference should be 20 degrees. But how deep it is it fine to have more depth? See, for a temperature difference of just 20 degrees, if you go much deeper, that will increase the installation cost as well. So you will select a place where the depth of the cold water location is not very deep. Okay, now you have the type of OTEC facility which is nearby. So it is near shoreline or at a shoreline or platform or free floating. So there are three types of utility points, right? Either you can install an OTEC power plant on the shoreline. or either you can install it near shoreline, or you can install it over the ocean layer, where you can install a platform, and that is called a free floating type power plant. So you will consider this. And ocean conditions. Now if you have waves or currents in that region, you can't install it. They can be utilized, the waves and the currents can be utilized for other source of energies, like if you are using tides, waves, currents for the other production of energies. Okay. Now sea bottom conditions. So how are the sea bottom conditions? You have to check whether the floating power conductors can be installed easily or not. And also you will see for the environmental impacts. So how are the environmental impacts on the power plant being installed nearby. Okay. Now after installation, you will also see for the conditions what are the deep ocean water applications potentials. So are there any deep water applications in the nearby areas where you are installing the plants? That should also be kept in consideration while selecting the site. And also you should see whether the government is giving some initiatives or incentives for the installation of the plants. So these things are also kept in mind. So the next topic which we are dealing with the tidal energy. Okay. So before moving on towards the principle of operation of how the tidal energy is being utilized, and how what are the advantages and disadvantages of tidal energy, let's see what are the tides. Okay. So what are tides? So we have to see the basic what are the lunar tidal dynamics. Okay. So the basics of the tides are the sun, the interaction of the sun, moon and earth system that causes a strange phenomena in the ocean. That phenomena is called tides. So the tides are basically the rise and fall of the water. How is this rise and fall taking place? The gravitational and the centrifugal forces acting on the moon are creating a force on the ocean water, that is on the earth's surface. With respect to that, the force of pulling, the force which is pulling the earth's surface and the moon together is the gravitational forces. And the centrifugal force is what? Centrifugal force is so it is acting in the opposite direction and pulling the moon away from the earth. So the gravitational, what is happening? The gravitational force is pulling the earth, sun, moon and the earth together. That is, it is pulling towards, and the centrifugal force is pulling outwards. That means it is pulling in the opposite direction. It is pushing outwards. Okay. These two forces act in equilibrium to maintain masses between these two bodies. Okay. So the balance between two bodies, or the equilibrium between two bodies, that is the moon and the earth, causes a force. So what is that force called? That force is called the gravitational pull. So according to Newton's law of gravitation, what is the gravitational pull according to Newton's law of gravitation? That F is equals to gravitational pull into mass 1 into mass 2 by r square. So what is happening here? What does it signify? That the gravitational pull on the earth's surface into mass m1 is the mass of the earth and m2 is the mass of the moon. So the two bodies. So the force acting on the body, force acting on a surface, or the gravitational force, is proportional to the square of the distance between two bodies. What is the r square? The square of the distance between two bodies. And so this is the gravitational pull. But what is your tidal force? The tidal force is different from the gravitational pull. So if you see here, the tidal force is different. How is the tidal force different? Because it is different in terms of the distance. Previously, the gravitational force is the square of proportional to the square of the distance, whereas this tidal force is cube of the distance between the surface. So cube of the distance. Now for this, if we see, the moon has much smaller mass than the sun and it is much closer to the earth. So the effect of the moon is 2 1 by 4 and greater 2 1 by 4 than that of the sun for the generation of tides. Now the main effect is because of the moon, not because of the sun but because of the moon, because it is the effect of the moon is 2 1 by 4 of the effect of the sun. Okay, so the gravitational force, what is happening? The gravitational force of the attraction of the moon causes the ocean water to bulge. So if you see here, this is the earth surface. Now earth is rotating on its own axis. So what is happening due to the gravitational force? It is causing the ocean water to bulge on the sides of the moon, on the side where the moon is facing. Now see, at this point if you see, the tidal bulge due to the attraction of the moon, and the centrifugal force, the other force, what we have two forces, right? Now here acting are two forces, one is the gravitational force and the other one is the centrifugal force. So this gravitational force is causing, which is pulling earth and moon towards each other, that is causing the bulge of the ocean water. Now on the other side, the tidal bulge due to the inertia force. Inertia force is nothing but your your centrifugal force in the opposite direction, that is causing the bulge on the other side. So on these two bodies, it can be observed that the maximum amplitudes of the tides, that is the high tides, are produced, and the minimum amplitude of the tides are low tides are produced. As the earth rotates, these two bulges, as the earth is rotating, these two bulges travels with the same rate as the earth rotation on its axis. So however the earth is rotating, with the traveling of the earth in its on its own axis, the two bulges also travel. Okay, so if you see the next slide here, that is the same thing representing here. So tidal bulges due to gravity and centrifugal force. So between the bulge between the moon and the earth, bulge caused between the attraction between the moon and the earth is due to the gravitational force, and the tidal bulge on the other side is due to the centrifugal force. Okay, so what is happening here? So if you see the moon, for how much time is the moon rotating around the earth? It is approximately for a lunar month. What is a lunar month? A lunar month is 29.5 days. That is approximately 30 days or 29 days, whatever it is. And in the same direction, the earth rotates every 24 hours. Okay, so the rotation of the earth with respect to the moon is, how much is it? If on an average, if we see, the earth is rotating for 24.84 hours, that is 24 hours 50 minutes, which is called as a lunar day. Okay, so if you see here, so the earth is rotating on its surface for a complete lunar day, which is 24 hours and 50 minutes. This is the reason why the tides are approximately 50 minutes each day. So the high tides or the low tides, what we are experiencing, that will be equal to 50 minutes each day. So this, now we see the tidal facts. The tide range is the distance between the high tide and the low tide mark. Okay, the largest range of the tide in the coastal regions with extreme depth is excellent tidal range, and the smallest range is less than 5 meters. Okay, now moving on towards what are spring tides and neap tides. Okay, how are the spring tides and neap tides occurring? First of all, I'll tell you that spring tides are the one which are greater than the average tides, and the neap tides are less than the average. So to have a appropriate idea of this, see, water is bulging towards the moon due to the gravitational force and causes the bulge lesser in, when the sun is less, the bulge is lesser. Okay, so here if you see in this diagram, every twice a month the bulge will be more. Okay, then it will be more full moon and new moon. Why is it so? Because at full moon the moon will be the moon and the sun will be aligned. Not just moon and the sun, the earth, the moon and the sun. If you see here, the earth, the moon and the sun, if you see here, they will be aligned in one direction. So what will happen? Full moon and new moon occurs for both full moon and new moon. So this will cause the tide generating force of the sun to be higher. The force of the sun and the moon will combine and produces a tide ranges which is greater than that of the average knowing range. Okay. So what is happening at full moon and new moon? We will have spring tides. So the one which are high tides, that is greater than that of the average tides, those are the spring tides. Now moving on towards the half moon. Now what is happening at half moon? At half moon, that is in the first quarter or the third quarter. Now at the that is the third quarter and the first quarter. The sun, the moon the sun and the moon will be at 90 degrees. If you see, so what happens when the sun and the moon are at 90 degrees? The tides generating forces tends to produce less tidal ranges, and that will be less than the average tidal range. So when it is less than the average of the tidal range, it will be called as the neap tides. Okay, the spring tides is when, see, the spring tide is when all the three are in align, when all the three are aligned, and the neap tides are when those are at a difference of that is the earth and the moon are with respect to earth are at 90 degrees variation. Okay. So the spring tide ranges to be the twice of that of the neap tides. Okay, the spring tides are greater than that of the average, and the neap tides are lesser than that of the average. And if you see approximately, the spring tide would be the twice of that of the neap tides. Okay, so the tidal movement can be reflected and restricted by the interruption of the masses of the land. So if you have an interruption of the masses and the bottom and the friction is taking place, which will reduce the velocity and the depth and the size and shape of the ocean basins, bays or estuaries, what you are using for the generation of energy. So now you have, so yes, the same thing, the arrangement of the tides is explained here also, that when it is at a 90 degrees angle, it will be neap tides. When it is at a 90 degrees angle, it will be a neap tide, and when it is at a aligned row, or when all the three are in same line, it will be a spring tide. Okay, before moving on towards the principle of tidal plants, we will see how many types of tides are there. Okay, there are three types of tides, that is diurnal tide, semi-diurnal tide, and mixed tide. 1 minute. So the different types of tides are diurnal tides, which are present one single high tide and one single low tide during one lunar day. So if you have one lunar day, you will have one single high tide and one single low tide. If you see here, one high tide will be there and one low tide will be there. And moving on towards semi-diurnal, there will be twice a day. Okay, so twice a day, that means every 12 hours 25 minutes you will have two high tides and two low tides. Okay, so the diurnal tides are common in Gulf of Mexico, Southeast Asia, and coast of Korea, whereas the semi-diurnal diurnal tides are present present in Atlantic coast and North America, whereas mixed tides are two unequal tides, either low or either high, that will be unequal, and it will also be a period. It will also be for a period for every 12 hours 25 minutes. Now, if you see here, the diurnal tides are one high tide and one low tide, which will be once in 24 hours 50 minutes. The semi-diurnal will be two high tides. If you see two high tides and 2 low tides of same magnitude. 2 high tides and 2 low tides every 12 or 25 minutes. Whereas mixed tides are both high tides, low tides. 2 higher tides, 2 lower tides in every 12 or 25 minutes. Okay, so these are the types of tides which are present. Now moving on towards the principle of tidal energy or tidal plant, we will see. So the tidal plant, what happens is when there is an arrangement, so the tidal plant will be arranged in this way. Either if you have high tides, there will be a dam constructed, there will be a turbine generator, and there will be a tidal basin. Okay, so whenever there is high tides or low tides occurring, for high tides there will be a different procedure, and the low tides will be a different procedure. So a dam is constructed separating the tidal basin from the sea, and difference in the level ground. So the sea level ground and the tidal basin will have a difference. Okay, so there will be an water level difference between the sea and the tidal sea level and the tidal basin. Okay, so whenever you have a high tide, water flows from sea into the tidal basins through the water turbine. Through this water turbine, whenever you have a high tide, there will be a push of the water. So due to the push of the water, what happens? The water flows through the turbine to the tidal basin, and the turbine unit operates and generates electricity. The electricity is generated by connecting the turbine directly to a generator. So it is a turbine coupled generator. So the electricity is produced. Whereas when you go for low tide here, and you have a low tide region, the tidal basin will be above the sea level ground. Okay. So what happened during the low tide? The water flows from the tidal basin to the sea. So as the water level in the basin is more than that of the tide in the sea, during this period the flowing of the water, so it is going in the opposite direction. From tidal basin to the sea it is going. Now during this period, the turbine will rotate, and it will produce the electrical energy due to the presence of the due to the flow of the water from the tidal basin to the sea. Okay. So the generation of the power will stop only when the sea level and the tidal basin level are equal. For the generation of power economically, now if you see the generation, if we see the economically power generation, the source of energy requires minimum tide height for the suitable site. Okay, there are some plants, that is the Kislaya power plant. There is one plant which is Kislaya power plant, which is generating about 250 megawatts of capacity in Russia. Okay, now if you are seeing this, the tidal power generation, now there are different arrangements of tides present. So if we see here, okay, how are the different tides constructed, we'll see. Okay, so the tidal turbines are very similar to that of the the wind turbines. Okay, so here if you see, this is a bulk turbine. In this bulk turbine, what is happening is the diameter of the here, it is about height of 60 meters, that is 157 feet high. Okay, and that is the diameter of the wind turbine, and the location is in such a way that is close to the shore, and the depth of the water should be at least 20 to 30 meters. Okay. So the tidal barrage is what? It's a type of construction of the turbine, where you are dams you create, you construct dams. Similar to that way only we have tidal barrages. Okay. So if you see, the bulk turbine is one in which the water flows around the turbine. If the maintenance is required, water must be stopped, which causes a problem in the time of consuming, which is possible for the loss of power. Loss of generation takes place. So Lawrence tidal plant is at St. Malo, Britain coast, where you have a In France, they use bulb turbines. Okay. The next you have rim type turbines. Okay. If you see the rim type turbines, the generator is mounted at a right angle. See, the turbine is here. The generator is mounted perpendicular to it. So the generator is mounted at a right angle of the turbine blades, which makes easier for the storage of the energy. Okay, but here it is not suitable for pumping. If you have to pump water and get it to the generating unit, it is not suitable. Now, what are the categories of generation? We'll see. Okay, there are different categories of generation. You have ebb generation, the flood generation, two-way generation, and pumping. So, ebb generation is where the freewheeling turbines are used until the high tides are coming. Okay, so whenever you have you will create a tidal basin, right? The basin is filled through the sluices. So the filled basin is kept closed until the sea level falls. That is for the low tide generation. Okay, for the low tide generation, your ebb generation is used where the sea level, when the sea level is falling, then only this ebb generation takes place. The doors will open and the turbine will come into the picture. Okay, flood generation is when the basin is empty through the sluices and turbines. This is much less efficient than ebb generation because the volume contained in the upper half of the basin is greater than the volume of the lower half. Okay, and two-way generation is both ebb and flood. What is happening when we were seeing for this? Here, what was happening in high tide generation? High tide generation is nothing but flood generation because of the high tides, your power was getting generated, and because of the low tides, this is the ebb generation. Whenever when the level is lesser, that is the tide level or the sea level is lesser than the tidal basin, you are using this ebb generation method. And whenever the level of the tide is higher than that of the turbine that is the basin, you are using flood generation. Okay. Now when you have combined generation, what is happening in combined generation? Or two-way generation occurs as both as the tide ebbs and the floods. That means whenever you have either you have low tide or a high tide, the generation is taking place. This mode is comparable to ebb generation at spring tides and in general is less efficient. So ebb generation at spring tides is less efficient, and the turbine is designed to operate in both directions are less efficient. So that means the two-way generation what you are using is less efficient when compared to that of the your ebb generation. Okay. Now pumping, if you see, the turbines can be powered in reverse by excess energy in the grid and increases the water level in the basin at high tide. For ebb generation and two-way generation, this energy is returned during the generation. So during the pumping, what happens? You are getting the water into the basin back. So the turbine acts in the reverse direction. So this is known as pumping. Okay. So now here, these were the different pumping methods. Now if we go for now we have seen the principle, what are the different principle of operation of tidal generation and what are the different generation types we have seen. Now we will see the advantages and disadvantages of tidal power. So if you go for tidal power, it is obviously free from pollution because there is no fuel utilized in that, and it is also superior to the hydropower plant. Why it is superior to the hydropower plant? Because it is totally independent of the rainwater harvesting. That is, though you have rain or not, it is just depending on the tides, which are either high tides or low tides. Okay, so this basins what you are creating, it also improves the fish farming. It can provide recreation to the visitors and holiday markets. That means it is also becoming a sightseeing location. That means it is also increasing the tourist spot. So next we have the limitations or the disadvantages of tidal energy. So what could be the limitations and disadvantages? So when you develop the tidal power plants, there will be no actual sites or the natural sites available. You have to go for constructions and you have to go for base, okay, which are usually, what will happen when you go for base, as the sites are available on the base, which are always far from the load centers. That is, the generation of whatever power you are generating, you have to take it to the point. So the transmission cost will be increasing. The transmission of power to the long distances will be increasing. This increases the transmission cost, and also because you have your transmission cost is increasing, your wires will be increasing, your bulk transmission will increase. So this may also cause your transmission losses. So these are the advantages of the tidal energy. So what all we have seen in tidal energy? We have seen the general basic principle of tidal energy, how are the tides working, and what are the formulas for tidal force and gravitational pull, how is the moon behaving, how is the sun behaving, what are causing tides, when are the high tides occurring and what are they called, when are the low tides occurring and what are they called, and how are high tides and low tides occurring. And what are the different types of tides we have seen, and a principle of tidal plant, and what are the different tidal generations we have seen, advantages and disadvantages we have seen. Okay, now the one which we have seen, where you are using a basin here, in this, where we are using a generation, and we see the principle of basin, here we are using just one basin, okay, this also both, we are using just one basin. We also have a schematic diagram wherein we can use two basins, okay, that is called a two basin scheme, okay. When you are using a double basin for the tidal power generation, those are called two basin systems or two basin scheme, okay. So what is happening in two basin scheme is, one is filled with the high tide, one is filled at high tide and other is empty at the low tide. So turbines placed between the basins. Now, if you see here, the turbines are placed between two basins, at one basin, at other basin. So, if suppose turbine A is getting filled at high tide, so it is getting filled by high tide. Now, turbine B is getting emptied, and it is a low tide. So, the two basin scheme is actually a two-way generation, or it is used for two-way generation. So if you see here, two basin scheme offers advantage over normal scheme generation time and be adjusted with high flexibility, and it is also possible to generate almost continuously. Normal exercise situations, however, two basin schemes are very expensive to construct due to the cost of extra length. Though because you are using two basin scheme, the length or the space what you are using is increasing. That's the reason it is not cost efficient, but the flexibility of time, the flexibility increases because there will be continuous generation. There will be no time gap. Because how does continuous generation taking place? When high tide is there, the basin A would be working and turbine would be working, and the generation of power would be taking place. And during the time when there are low tides, the basin B will be working, and your turbine basin B will be in picture, and this turbine will be working, and the power will be produced. Okay. So now, if you see here, both the basins are working simultaneously. So, as we have said earlier that we will discuss these all points. So, we have covered today's session. We have covered the introduction of energy from ocean thermal energy conversion. What is ocean thermal energy conversion? We have seen what are the different types of ocean thermal energy conversion systems or power plants we are using. What are the advantages and disadvantages also we have seen for ocean thermal electric conversion method. And also we have seen what are the site consideration for constructing a ocean OTEC plant, OTEC power plant. Okay, then we have seen this was for ocean thermal. Thermal is dealing with the thermal energy which is generated from the oceans, whereas tidal is the mechanical energy which we are utilizing for the uh, generation of power from the tides. So for tides, what we have seen, basic science of tides we have seen, and how is it varying because of the uh, variation of the moon, sun, and earth because of the forces. What are the forces acting on the earth's surface during which because of which the high tides and the low tides are occurring. Uh, then we have seen the facts. What are the major facts for tides? Spring tides and neap tides. What are the spring tides and neap tides we have seen, and also we have seen the difference between the spring tides and neap tides and when are they occurring. Okay. And what are the types of tides we have seen? Types of tides are diurnal tides, semi-diurnal tides, and mixed tides. And this is explained semi-diurnal, diurnal, and mixed tides how they are taking place. And we have seen the tidal plant generation. We have seen the advantages and disadvantages. What are the different types of generations also we have seen. How are the different types of generations in tidal plants taking place. And also we have seen the one basin and two basin systems. So these are the one basin systems. The other one what we have seen in the PDF is our two basin system. So hope you understood the class for today, the session, and we have almost covered everything what we have what we have decided for today. So the next class we will be dealing with the remaining topics of Unit 4, that is the wave energy generation. How are the wave energy generation? How is ocean energy utilized? Waves, and we will discuss the geothermal energy, that is the energy from the earth surface, how we are utilizing the earth surface. If you have any doubts, please comment in the comment box, and do mention your roll numbers and your names for the attendance purpose. So that's it for today's class. Thank you.